Hi everyone, and welcome to our Centering Servingness webinar series. Super excited to be with you here today in March. My name is Carla Silva, and I serve as the Director for Hispanic Serving Institution Initiatives here at the University of Arizona. So I'm excited that our webinar series today includes folks from our UA community who are doing incredible work. But before they get started, we'll just do a little bit of a quick intro as to the webinar series for folks who may be new or just want to know a little bit more about that, and then I'll pass it off to Nicole and Celeste. The meeting is being recorded, so if you have to dip out early or kind of come in and out, know that we typically do post it on our YouTube about a week after, so by next week, so you can definitely come back and look at it or share it with your colleagues. So the first thing we always like to do is begin by just recognizing and paying honor to the original inhabitants of the land on which the University of Arizona resides on. We know that not everyone who joins us maybe is here in Tucson, and so we would also encourage you to also recognize the lands that you may be on. But here in Tucson, this region includes the ancestral homelands of the Tohono O'odham Nation and the Pascua Yaqui tribe. So we offer our gratitude in being able to share knowledge and to learn from each other on our Indigenous lands. A little bit more about just the webinar series. Our webinar series is informed by the work of Dr. Gina Garcia. If you don't know who she is, we often call her the madrina of HSIs, as she has done so much to help us, consider, think through, and learn about the concept of servingness. So this webinar series features faculty and staff at the U of A, but also in Arizona or even from some of our national partners. And we always want to highlight just the scholarship and servingness efforts that are not honoring the cultures and lived experiences of our staff, students, and faculty. So the goal of our series are threefold. One, that by spotlighting current scholarship, we offer examples of the rich ways in which servingness is enacted by faculty and staff across the institution or institutions. Two, we invite others, both on our campus and nationally, to learn about and engage in these efforts. And lastly, we really just want to work on building knowledge, right? So each month we address different questions. Folks talk about different, sometimes students, staff, or faculty, but really, what does it look like to build capacity, particularly at our institutions around HSI and servingness? At the University of Arizona, we received our designation in 2018. I still think, although we've had it now a few years, we're still learning a lot about our institution and what we need to do to make sure we're serving our students in the ways that they need to. But we were the first institution to be awarded, the first four-year public institution in our state to be recognized as an HSI. So that's just a little bit about the webinar series and our institution. So I'm super excited today because I have worked with Nicole and Celeste in the past. So I was really excited that they wanted to be featured on our webinar series to talk a little bit about their program. So it is my honor to introduce both Dr. Celeste Atkins and Dr. Nicole Marrone, who will talk to us a little bit about the program they've been overseeing called Grad CAFE. So I'll go ahead and pass it over to them, and they will chat with you a little bit about what they've been doing these last few years here on our campus.
Thank you so much. I shared my screen and lost my unmute button. Let me back this up a little bit. My name is Dr. Celeste Atkins, and I'm here with my colleague and co-collaborator, Dr. Nicole Marrone, and we really appreciate the invitation from Dr. Franco, Dr. Silva, and the HSI team to share our work and our passion with you today. We're the co-directors and co-investigators for Graduate Communities for Academic Fellowship and Efficacy, better known as Grad CAFE. And we are here to share with you how we grew Grad CAFE from an HSI Fellows project to a thriving program funded by the National Science Foundation with a lot of support from the Office of Hispanic Serving Institution Initiatives, the Commission for the Status of Women, the College of Education, and the College of Science, and individuals like Christina Kalel, Stephanie Murphy, and our amazing community leaders. In today's discussion, I'll provide an overview of Grad CAFE, sharing information on our multi-tiered mentoring model, our logic model, and our food-centered approach. And Dr. Marrone will provide background information on how we developed Grad CAFE, our current program, and our initial findings on the impact of the program. Then I'll close us out with sharing about our next steps for Grad CAFE. We expect to take about 35 to 40 minutes for the presentation, leaving plenty of time for questions and discussion at the end of the session. So the Graduate Communities for Academic Fellowship and Efficacy, Grad CAFE, is a holistic, intersectional, interdisciplinary, multi-tiered mentoring program. We are currently funded for 5 years with a $1 million grant from the National Science Foundation's Innovations in Graduate Education program, and we're finishing up year 2 of that grant. Grad CAFE has multiple roles. Dr. Marrone and me serve as co-directors. You see us here in the green, and we are assisted by senior community leaders and community leaders. And then we really focus on the peer mentors who are first and second year graduate students. Our community leaders shown here are the key to the success of Grad CAFE. They are doctoral candidates who have successfully completed their comprehensive exams. They go through a 7-week online mentoring training and work closely with Dr. Marrone and me on their facilitation, mentoring, and course planning skills. Community leaders co-plan and co-facilitate the weekly student success classes as a team. They facilitate a monthly peer mentoring community, and they help facilitate the monthly whole cohort cafecitos. The community leaders are the reason we have been able to scale up this program without additional faculty or staff. They are really the heart of Grad CAFE. And speaking of their training, all community leaders complete the Making Effective and Nurturing Training Opportunities for Research Students, otherwise known as mentors, culturally inclusive training workshop. This workshop was designed as a second step after completing the Mentor Institute. It's open to all faculty, staff, postdocs, and graduate students. It's a 7-week, mostly asynchronous course with 3 Zoom meetings throughout the semester. It combines elements of the immersed training developed by Dr. Sonja Lanehart and her team, the Creating Truly Inclusive Learning Environment workshops developed by Dr. Masha Jameen, Christina Kalel, Ana Fierro, and me, and it includes some information from the Mentor Institute through the Provost's office. This training takes learners through a reflection on their positionality and how it may affect their mentoring relationships, an exploration of bias and interpersonal interactions, including microaggressions and how to effectively interrupt them in the moment, a discussion of equity and inclusion in higher education, a discussion of differing roles and supports that mentors play, an exploration of the important aspects of mentoring students from traditionally underrepresented backgrounds, and it ends with mentoring best practices where the participants create their own mentoring philosophy and top 10 list. It's offered the second 7 weeks of each semester, and we're currently just started this week. Now, let's turn to the program itself. Grad CAFE uses a multi-tiered mentoring model in which students benefit from an intersectional and interdisciplinary mentoring cohort. In this model, Dr. Marrone and I, as co-directors in this pink circle, meet with each participant in a one-on-one mentoring session at least once a semester and are available as needed additionally. And this is indicated by these blue arrows from our circle to the community leaders in yellow, the senior community leaders, the community leaders in blue, and the peer mentors in green. The senior community leaders, this yellow circle, have the responsibility of more than one section of the student success seminar, and they serve as peer mentors to the community leaders and as near peer mentors to the peer mentors in this green circle. The community leaders serve as peer mentors to the senior community leaders and as near peer mentors to the peer mentors. Additionally, Dr. Marrone and I mentor each other. The community leaders and senior community leaders serve as mentors to each other, and the peer mentors serve as mentors to each other. And this is represented by the gray multi-dimensional arrows in each circle. So Grad CAFE transforms traditional approaches to mentoring graduate students by combining evidence-based best practices such as culturally inclusive mentoring and a community-building strengths-based approach to target factors that impact student persistence through an HSI servingness framework. Wiley Packard in 2016 identified 3 factors impacting students' persistence in STEM: capacity, which is defined as the ability to learn or demonstrate competence in STEM, as well as a sense of self-efficacy or confidence in their ability to persist and achieve in STEM. Interest, which is defined as the student's perception that STEM is relevant, useful, and feasible for their future, and belongingness, or a sense of shared identity. The Grad CAFE program consists of several activities each week, all centered around food deliberately. I'll explain that a little further later on. But these activities include a Tuesday morning breakfast meeting for the community leaders, facilitated by Dr. Marrone and me, where we talk through plans for the week and upcoming weeks, and we discuss any issues or challenges that have arisen within the sections. We have 4 student success seminar sections: Tuesday at 11, Tuesday at 1, Wednesday at 11, and Wednesday at 1, each serving a hot, nutritious lunch. This seminar, facilitated by the community leaders, is more holistic than most student success seminars, discussing not only public speaking, best practices in learning, grad school expectations, self-advocacy, strategic planning, and networking, but also work-life balance, mental health, academic identity, and finding resources both on and off campus. After the first 5 weeks, participants are divided into smaller peer mentoring communities, facilitated by 1 to 2 community leaders and consisting of 3 to 6 peer mentors. These smaller peer mentoring communities meet 3 times within the semester during the seminar time to allow for greater connection and discussion in smaller groups. Finally, the entire cohort gets together 4 times a semester for cafecitos, a time for networking across sections of Grad CAFE, professional development, fun, and of course, food. The term cafecito was chosen deliberately in recognition of our land grant mission and our position on the lands and territories of indigenous peoples and as part of the borderlands with Mexico. The literal translation of cafecito is a little coffee in Spanish, but the term has much broader cultural significance in the Hispanic and Latinx communities, with a foundation in the social justice movement. Cafecitos traditionally took place around the kitchen table with coffee, food, and conversation. Lopez and Calderon assert that, quote, the mere invitation to partake in cafecito signaled recognition, respect, and community. If you were invited to cafecito, you knew you were needed and trusted. We chose this term to deliberately signify that Grad CAFE is more than just academic support. It is a culturally affirming, inclusive community where participants can show up as their full, authentic selves. In the program, the cafecitos are designed as times to intentionally come together, break bread, and build community across different disciplines and social identities. A place where stories and experiences can be shared and validated, providing a feeling of caring, support, and hopefully a sense of home. As you can see in a future picture, we provide each cohort with a t-shirt. We choose a different color each semester to promote that sense of unity and belongingness. And I'll show you that on a different slide. This is the Grad CAFE logic model. And it emphasizes how within this HSI servingness environment, and that's indicated by these green boxes here, these internal organizational dimensions, such as culturally inclusive practices and a focus on HSI servingness, within these experiences that we outline here in the top yellow box, such as the classes, the one-to-one mentoring, the peer mentoring communities, and the cafecitos, positively impact academic identity, capacity, and interest in the short term, shown here in the middle yellow box, leading to increased or improved sense of belonging, mental health, and well-being, shown here in the bottom box, resulting in long-term outcomes such as increased satisfaction, improved retention, and completion. So the objectives of the Grad CAFE program are to improve student capacity through professional development, resource access, and soft skill development, improve student interest through values and career exploration, connections to alumni and industry, and academic and professional networking, and to reduce tokenization and isolation, thereby improving students' sense of belonging. Through these, we hope to increase student retention and decrease student time to completion. The Grad CAFE team works to help students shape their academic identity, embrace their whole selves, and build community through intersectional and interdisciplinary connections. What sets Grad CAFE apart is that it moves beyond single-year programs to a multi-year program in which students can join as peer mentors in their first or second year of graduate school, then return after they complete their comprehensive exams to serve as community leaders, thereby building their teaching, facilitation, curriculum, and leadership skills. Christina, shown here, was a peer mentor and now has returned as a community leader. In this presentation, we will focus mainly on results from focus groups conducted after the spring 2025 semester, and more specifically on the impact of holistic food-centered programming. And here you can see them in their all matching, that was our purple semester. So that's their purple t-shirts. And Grad CAFE activities are intentionally planned around food for several reasons. One, to address the issues of poverty and food insecurity that are rampant among graduate students. Two, to address graduate students skipping meals due to lack of time. And three, to create that sense of fellowship and community that comes from sharing a meal. We learned that at the very first meeting of our HSI Fellows cohort, which took place around Dr. Franco's kitchen table, where we shared a meal and got to know each other. Now I'll turn it over to my colleague, Nicole.
Thank you so much, Celeste. We're really glad to be here today. Grad CAFE is a passion project for both of us, and it was inspired by Celeste's own graduate experiences, where she felt isolated and unable to connect with the members of her cohort. And this, combined with a shared focus on mentoring with collaborator Christina Kalel, led to the belief that graduate students would benefit from having the same type of learning communities that the University of Arizona was offering for faculty at the time. When Celeste became an HSI Fellow, she used that opportunity to have our HSI Fellows project team focus on this as a project. And I was just absolutely thrilled to team with her on this as part of HSI Fellows because I love working with and supporting doctoral students. And we had just come out of the pandemic and we were seeing the immense struggles at that time for graduate students. So, as part of our HSI Fellows project, our team in the 2022-23 academic year raised $22,000 from internal stakeholders, wrote a few small grants for funding for a research assistant, and then we submitted our first NSF IG proposal, which did not get funded, but we persisted and we continued and created the Student Success Seminar. We commissioned a logo, we created marketing materials and recruited participants. And in the 2023-24 year, we piloted the program and then resubmitted the NSF IG proposal, and happily we were funded. And in the 2024-25 year, we updated the program and offered it for year one of the NSF grant. So as part of the program updates, we began by looking at the literature on the needs of graduate students. Gardner in 2009 reported that graduate students in the United States face a myriad of issues that can contribute to attrition, including lack of motivation, limited financial resources, limited departmental support, bad advising, mental health issues, and the feeling they do not fit in at the institution. Research at our institution at the University of Arizona showed that female and underrepresented graduate students in particular report higher stress levels related to finances, family responsibilities, course loads and workloads, and express concerns about their ability to successfully continue in academia. In 2024, Martinez and colleagues found that graduate students are 6 times more likely to experience depression than other adults in the United States, pointing to stressors such as high pressure, isolating academic culture, problematic relationships with mentors, perceived institutional discrimination, financial issues, and poor mentorship. In a separate 2020 study, Martinez found that food insecurity is increasing while mental health and well-being are decreasing among graduate students, which affirmed findings by Nazmi et al. In 2019, estimating that approximately 1/3 of graduate students have limited or uncertain access to food. Hamad and Liang, in their 2024 work, assert that the issue of food insecurity is particularly salient for graduate students because of their unique circumstances. Common issues facing graduate students include those stressful workloads, demanding mentors or PIs, financial insecurity, and difficulties in achieving work-life balance, and these can exacerbate food insecurity. Finally, Cofino found in 2021 that graduate students with food insecurity have significantly elevated levels of depression, anxiety, and stress. So using the information from our literature review, focus groups, and needs survey, we created Grad CAFE and piloted the program in fall 2023. And we've spent the last almost 3 years in just a continuous feedback and improvement cycle. We gained some valuable insights during this process and wanted to share some of those with you today. So our first lesson learned was that shared values and articulating those shared values and coming back to those shared values again, that's really crucial to success. Different collaborators along the way have approached this work as an intervention on the students, which was really antithetical to Celeste and my perspective, that we are not performing an intervention on the students because we know they're amazing, brilliant scholars who've earned their place in graduate school. Instead, we're performing an intervention on the academic environment, the institution that's traditionally not done a great job of making all students feel welcome and included. So now we ensure that all of our collaborators share our strengths-based approach and core values. Our second lesson to share was about how we approached the curriculum. Grad CAFE, since its inception, has been very successful at creating a strong community and a sense of belonging with our participants. However, for our first iteration of the curriculum, we received feedback from peer mentors that we had too many guest speakers just talking at the students, and they didn't have enough time to interact with each other. And community leaders were also disenchanted with the class because most of the lessons were actually tailored to those first and second year students. Students are asked to complete short feedback surveys after every activity. We just survey them constantly, which are compiled at the end of the semester. As you can see from this figure that Celeste just displayed for you, in the first semester of the program, participants shared that the classes were relevant, with useful information that kept them interested, with good facilitators. The lowest areas of satisfaction were in teaching them something new, probably due to the feedback from those community leaders, and allowing them to interact with their peers. So we changed the format to have the community leaders help to plan and facilitate the class in year one of the NSF grant, and that has been much more effective. The community leaders started taking more initiative and ownership over the program. However, there were still a few complaints from peer mentors that there was not enough time for student interaction. So now we'll show you the updated outcomes or feedback surveys. As you can see from this figure from spring 2024, it's just flipped on its side there. Satisfaction grew from 4 to 4.6 for allowing interaction with peers, and from 4.2 to 4.6 for teaching something new. The third lesson was to be mindful of how much time students would be able to commit. Grad students are often overworked, overloaded, and underpaid, as we all know. So therefore, even a program meant to support them can sometimes feel like an additional burden. And so with that in mind, we've built the small peer mentoring community meeting time actually into the class schedule. We reduced the class from an academic year to just a semester for peer mentors. And this makes it easier to create the peer mentoring communities. And it also allows us to serve double the number of first and second year graduate students in a year. And community leaders who receive a stipend for their involvement are asked to commit to the full academic year. And that really helps them to grow as mentors themselves. Our final lesson was around recruitment. While we had very high satisfaction from participants, it was challenging for us to get buy-in sometimes from STEM students, particularly first-year students who are just getting into their labs. And so we've had better luck with second semester first-year students and then second-year students who actually, unfortunately, then have experienced grad school and feeling isolated and wanting more support. At the same time, we were just bombarded with interest from international students, master's students, and non-STEM students who did not meet the original parameters of the NSF grant. So we took that into consideration and reached out to our program officer about that. And this year, in year 2 of the grant, we've completely flipped the class. We provide videos and resources through our learning management system and have community leaders facilitate open discussions through the class time. And that has the onus of class facilitation and in large part the curriculum planning then on the community leaders. And that allows them to build their teaching skill set. And it also allows Celeste and I to scale up the program without vastly increasing the workload on us as faculty and staff. It still increased the workload, but it helps. Additionally, we experienced a large dump in participation in the spring 2026 semester once we transitioned from the graduate college to a joint venture between the College of Education and the College of Science. And we were able to extend and expand the participant pool to include all graduate students, master's and doctoral students, international students, and citizens, which led to almost doubling the number of peer mentors participating. We also expanded to both STEM and non-STEM students. So we're so excited this semester to debut our new space in Education North 111, which features photos of our cohorts on the walls, along with the Wildcat Affinity logos and other homey touches that we're trying to put into the space. And we now are able to have all of our classes and cafecitos in the same space on campus, as well as have things like a puzzle table and other kinds of community building activities out. And then we also have convenient food and drink storage, which is helping us to save on costs as well. Overall, Grad CAFE has continued to grow. And in the pilot year where we asked peer mentors to attend all year, we did have some attrition from peer mentors going from 17 peer mentors to 11. So that led us to also consider that change of going from a year-long experience for peer mentors down to 1 semester. And so in year 1 of the grant, we had 6 community leaders and 16 peer mentors in the fall, 22 total. Then 8 community leaders and 23 peer mentors in the spring for 31, in total. And this past fall, we expanded to 10 community leaders and 25 peer mentors for a total of 35 students. And currently, it just gives me goosebumps to say that we've doubled the number of peer mentors to 50, and we've added 2 research leaders. So we're engaging 60 graduate students in our program this semester. And we're excited that 3 of our community leaders are actually former peer mentors who've returned to serve new peer mentors. So our Grad CAFE research study, as part of our NSF grant, we're doing a program evaluation of Grad CAFE, and it utilizes a mixed methods evaluative approach with a convergent parallel research design. And this case study we'll talk to you about today presents findings from a preliminary qualitative analysis that we did of focus group data that was collected during the second semester of the first year of the grant. The focus groups were conducted during finals week of the spring semester, and our guiding question was, in what ways did gathering around food contribute to Grad CAFE student experiences and outcomes? Participants identified several factors associated with the impact of food in the Grad CAFE program. Several community leaders shared their personal experiences with food insecurity during graduate school, and one community leader shared, and this is a long quote, so bear with me, but last semester, I was quite food insecure, actually, and knowing I could come here 2 or 3 times a week and get food, take leftovers if I wanted, was quite helpful for me without outwardly having to say, hey, I'm having trouble finding food or getting food. That was really nice too. It keeps you on the same level as everyone else so that we could all get food. And if you're food insecure, you don't have to feel awkward getting food as well. Other participants shared the value of having a nutritious meal each week. I think it has been very helpful, even when I'm not food insecure, to know that I don't have to worry about lunch that day. And if I take some things home, I don't have to worry about dinner that day either, especially when you're really busy and you don't actually have time to cook something. So something that you're able to reheat, something healthy and filling, is really nice. Another quote: the days that I really appreciated the food the most were the days when we had something really nutritious, because I eat a lot of ramen at my desk. I just think of that broccolini all the time, and having a salad every single time where I could eat a lot of vegetables during our school day. Grad CAFE participants stated the importance of food in the program for helping to meet their basic needs, combat the stigma of food insecurity, alleviate their financial stress, and ensure reliable, stable access to nutritious food. Some participants also expressed that Grad CAFE helped meet their basic needs beyond food, with sharing of campus resources such as the food pantry. One community leader shared that the program t-shirt was the only new piece of clothing they received during that academic year. And another community leader expressed gratitude for support they received from us as co-directors and Grad CAFE community as they navigated a very difficult housing transition. The Grad CAFE program also had a positive impact on participants' confidence and sense of community. Meeting around food contributed significantly to a comfortable atmosphere and creating a sense of community and belonging. Peer mentors described it as, it felt more casual when you could just chat and eat. It feels less like a classroom. And it was also like a conversation starter. Oh, we have this today. What do you like? So not talking about school stuff. And one peer mentor summarized the feeling of community meals as, it was really tribal that we eat together. Another aspect of the program identified by the participants was gathering in community as underrepresented graduate students, cultivating resilience and problem solving. I think, again, this goes back to the community aspect, just being able to collectively share our experiences. Even though they come from different backgrounds, but we are all in the imposter syndrome or whatever that looks like, being able to vent and hear feedback of how other people dealt with it. That was from a peer mentor. Knowing that I'm not alone in this fight, I'm not crazy, don't drop out your first year, things like that, really gave me the perseverance that I needed to kind of keep going and not dwindle out and flame out that first year. Another quote: I would say, for me, the biggest need that I had was just kind of community. Seeing other people, meeting other people in grad school, and having a space to regularly interact with people. Because in grad school, it's really easy to, when things get busy, is when you put socializing and kind of seeing people, you avoid that. Because, well, I need to put the time into these projects and things. So then it's kind of like when you're most isolated is when you're struggling the most. But that's also when you don't have time to do something. So having regularly scheduled, here, just come eat food, talk to people like that, I think that was meeting my need. Sharing a meal weekly provided for Grad Cafe participants time to build bonds through togetherness and conversations, sharing their experiences, and supporting others with collaborative problem solving. And this disrupted feelings of marginalization and isolation associated with being students from underrepresented backgrounds in STEM. And our study found that including meals in the program activities enhanced positive feelings, fostered a sense of belonging, and contributed to a welcoming environment where graduate students felt cared for and safe. Communal eating, such as is promoted in Grad Cafe, is actually used as a measure of social connectedness worldwide in research. And Denev and colleagues in 2025 found that it positively contributed to happiness and well-being. And now I turn it back over to Celeste.
Thank you, Nicole. As we've illustrated, Grad Cafe has proven to be an effective way of providing holistic support to doctoral STEM students at our Research One HSI. Participants have expressed that the access to resources, food-centered activities, multi-tiered mentoring, and holistic support have increased their satisfaction in graduate school and helped them to persist and even thrive. Additionally, based on our spring data, Grad Cafe has positively impacted participants' sense of research self-efficacy as well as their sense of belonging at the institution. Grad Cafe's impact was acknowledged last year during the inaugural University of Arizona Community Impact Awards, where Dr. Marrone received the Faculty Community Impact Award and I received the Staff Community Impact Award for our work with Grad Cafe. This is just the beginning for Grad Cafe. We're excited to be sharing our initial findings at the Hawaiian International Conference on Education, at the Pod Network Annual Conference, at the Pacific Sociological Annual Conference, and at the University of New Mexico's Mentoring Institute Annual Conference, as well as the upcoming American Educational Research Association Annual Conference. We've published about Grad Cafe in the Chronicle of Mentoring and Coaching. We have an article forthcoming focused on how we create a transdisciplinary intersectional community to provide holistic support to grad students. That will be in Frontiers in Sociology. And we're under review for our article on food-centered mentoring with another peer-reviewed journal. While we still have another 3 years in the current research project, we plan to expand in 3 ways. First, we're working on a grant proposal to use the CAFE approach in conjunction with other proven methods to better support STEM students transferring in from community colleges. Second, we're looking for collaborators at other institutions to write another NSF IGE grant to beta test Grad Cafe in other settings. And our first collaborator is Taylor Forster at Oregon State University, who was a community leader and graduated and is now a tenure track faculty at that institution. And finally, we're working on a curriculum that will be available for other institutions to use to implement the program on their campuses. We hope that this approach will transform the way that we support graduate students in the future. And with that, we thank you for your time and attention, and we'll open the floor to questions.
Awesome. Thank you both so much for sharing about Grad Cafe and the wonderful work you all are doing. I feel lucky because I've kind of seen you all do this throughout the last few years. So it's really exciting to hear from you all and to see what you're kind of moving into next. So as Celeste said, we will open it up for questions. You're welcome to use the Q&A feature or the chat feature. And then we also have a few questions for them on our end as well. So I'll go ahead and I can ask one of our questions just as folks are maybe thinking through what you all talked a little bit about. So I have a few different questions, but I'm curious, how can if you had another institution, and I know you just talked about wanting to collaborate more with other institutions, but let's say someone was thinking about adopting or adapting a similar type of initiative. Is there any kind of recommendations, things you wish you knew before you all started developing this idea and then implementing it? Is there anything for folks who might be interested in something similar? What would your advice to them be?
Do you want me to kick it off, Nicole? Okay. Um, the first thing I think would be from some of those lessons learned, particularly about shared values. This whole 3-year process, 4 years actually, because we put it together before that, has been about learning about what type of team really can make it move forward, right? The second thing I would say, particularly in the current environment, is to figure out how your institution deals with food issues. That was a big part of the challenge in feeding them, but it was core to us. It wasn't originally part of our research question, but because we worked so hard on justifying giving the students the food, we asked about it and we found that it's really core to the success of the process. And the other thing that I think we really thought about, and as we talked about a little bit with the cafecitos, is making it fit your environment and your students. We wanted to very much send a message that this is a Tucson thing. Come join us for Cafecito. If you're not from Tucson, one of the things that we do is we have a whole list of great restaurants and places to hike and places to have fun. And if you're Black and move to Tucson, where can you get your hair done? All of those types of things that programs don't really think about, but that are really important when you're moving from, say, New Jersey or Wisconsin to Tucson. Nicole?
Yeah. Oh, I just loved your list. That was really great. I'm like, yes, yes, that's exactly right. I would say all of those things. And the kind of other like little piece I would add on top of it is really thinking about the learning that happened for us. I think going from being a STEM program to all disciplines on campus, and then going from um, like kind of knowing our capacity too, like as faculty, as we're like growing in staff, as we're growing, because having a community program, we also needed that structure for the individualized needs that come up, and really having a process for strong communication between all the different levels of the team. So the fact that we, gather each week Celeste and I have realized like we also need to separately meet each week, so you kind of have to work through some growing pains. We joked for, I think we still say the joke of like, we're, building the plane while we're flying it, that kind of thing. But like being open and like flexible and patient as you're adapting and growing the program too. I think is really important. And then being open to their feedback. And I think that's been one of the, we don't always think of it as like a shared value explicitly, but I think the fact that we do this cycle and process of asking for feedback and then responding to that feedback, like our participants and our community leaders see that about us as co-directors too. And I know that they have expressed appreciating that we, are open to, learning what's working and what's not working. So by not having to be like so prescriptive and rigid all the time and like, okay, we tried it this way and now we've learned and we're going to do it this way. So I think that's been very important as well.
No, that's awesome. I love that. We have a question from Sara Mata. She asks, do you partner with culinary folks or healthy eating initiatives for your food options?
I wish I could. We have gone through variations. In my original dreaming about it, we're going to use Tucson local restaurants, and it got to be a little bit too much because I am ordering 5 meals a week. And then because we have the breakfast and then 4 sections with lunch, so 5 meals a week, and then uh, dinner for 60 some people once a month. For one semester, we partnered with the Sands Club, but that was a little far. And now really, I use Easy Cater, but what we do is we ask for all the food needs and restrictions, and I keep very strong track of that. And I rotate through different kinds of food, making sure that I'm meeting the needs of whoever's in that section. So a lot of administrative work goes into just meal planning and facilitation, and then P cards and all that process.
Awesome. Thank you. Um, I am going to ask you kind of one large overarching question, and both of you are welcome to answer it as well. And so, obviously, right, part of our Centering Servingness webinar series really is this focus on servingness, right? How are we working collectively at our institutions to promote servingness work to ensure, right, that everything we do is embedded in servingness and that students really do feel seen. So kind of thinking about that, and then y'all have been on our campus at the U of A for quite some time now, and kind of thinking about those things. I'm curious, for y'all, what next steps do you think are needed to build institutional capacity around HSI servingness with the specific lens of graduate students?
I always tend to jump in first, so I want to give Nicole the chance to go
Oh,
first.
sure. I can go first on this one. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, that's such a great question. And I think, we think about it a lot in our logic model, how we built that in, inspired by the work of Gina Garcia around the importance of the environment. And I feel that I've even learned from just this past semester where we were able to move into this new space that was a dedicated space where we can, create a space where students have their different identity and cultural identities represented on campus, and having like just thinking back to how we were talking about like the affinity logos and creating that kind of environment. I mean, I think sometimes those kinds of things get dismissed a bit, in the academic environment and community, but they are very meaningful to whether or not the students, feel like they are really, like you were saying, being feeling seen on campus. And so I think that's really important, like thinking about spaces. I know that, there were, there's just a need for that, I think, for graduate students. Like, unless a graduate student what I've heard from students is that unless they're, in a lab, they don't necessarily have a space like that. And so, like, for us, for Celeste and I, we've always had this dream of like imagining like Grad CAFE becoming this kind of center, where it would be this type of sense of belonging could really be cultivated, with like a physical space and a center and research and student engagement activities and things like that. And so that's kind of through our lens of Grad Cafe. But I think that within how we experience that as our program, I think, that kind of is something to just thinking about broadly across campus, right? Like, do students feel like they can bring, we ask a question of students, like, do you feel like you can bring your whole self to campus? Do you feel like you can, express your cultural identity in the academic environment? And I think that's really critical. If we, you hear in different spaces in academia, people talking about wanting to, well, how can we, have greater inclusion or diversify spaces? And it's like, we have to, like, it's not about, it's not like coming back to what we were talking about before with the values. Like, it's about shifting the environment so the academic culture is welcoming and is serving its students. I think I've heard faculty sometimes misunderstand the concept of servingness, viewing it as like, oh, well, we're kind of dismissing it as like a customer service kind of lens. And so there's a lot of like re-education I find myself doing. The same thing around like why we took a research approach to talking about food. We're not just serving food to students because we're nice people. Like, yes, we're nice and kind people. And, if you know about learning theory, you know that a student isn't going to be at their full potential for learning in the classroom unless their basic needs are met and they feel safe and they have eaten food. It's like, if you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right, for those folks on the call or, watching later, from psychology, right? Like, you need to have basic needs met in order to self-actualize. And that's what an institution of higher education is doing and supporting students to do, is to find their full potential and to reach that and to achieve their academic dreams. And so I often find myself when I'm talking to people or they see me, moving food through the space, right? It's like, yes, I'm bringing this food. And the reason I'm bringing this food is, you might not realize it, but 4 out of 10 graduate students are food insecure. It's happening in our department too. We have students who come to my office to get food, right? So like doing that, I think re-education too around that is important in reshaping the academic culture itself to being, like, acknowledging among faculty too and staff, like, we need to take breaks too. We need to have time to eat our lunches, right? Like, so, yeah. I'll turn it back to Celeste. Sorry, as faculty member, I can like go on for like a day about that. So
that was great.
I agree, obviously, with what Nicole says. One of the things that I'd like to point out about our approach that was intentional is we wanted it to be interdisciplinary and we wanted it to be intersectional, right? I have students who are the only woman or who are the only Black woman in pharmacology. I can't make them have another Black woman to feel comfortable with. But as someone who for a long time was the only Black female faculty at Cochise College, what made me find comfort and home and safety was finding a group of like-minded peers, right? We didn't have the same identities. We didn't have the same backgrounds, but we had the same values. And we created a space where we not only validated each other and listened to each other, but where we advocated for each other and used our privilege on behalf of each other. And that's what we're trying to create with Grad Cafe. And that's part of the feedback that we get, because right now I'm in the middle of doing those one-on-one meetings with all of our peer mentors. And one of the things they say is, wow, it's great to meet with like-minded people and not talk about astrophysics or not talk about psychology, but to learn about other people's interests and to talk about how hard it is to transition to grad school. And that's a real thing. So I think that's really important. And I think that um, the university is very siloed. There are a lot of people doing similar amazing work in all these little silos. And I wish, and I think Thomas Harris and Jenna are working on that, right? Campus community connections is starting to bring together affinity groups and other groups like that. And I think the more that we work together and work with each other, we create a more inclusive environment. Secondly, I think one of the focuses, and I was saying this even back when I was an HSI fellow, the reason I wanted to be an HSI fellow is as a Black student at I think I had graduated by then, but I was a Black graduate student here. And when they got HSI, they're like, oh, great, Hispanics. But what about the rest of us? And I really think we need more education about the fact that HSI servingness is really serving all underrepresented students, not just the Hispanic population. And, the idea that until all of us are welcome, none of us are welcome. And then third, I'd like to say, yes, our grand dream, I'm putting it out there. If anybody, is sitting on a couple of $1 million and wants a good cause for it, we really want to build the center for academic fellowship and efficacy because there was a lot of work done at U of A, but it was for undergrads. That whole student success district is for undergrads. And I think that we don't always think about the immense value that graduate students bring to our campus. Graduate students are supporting that research that makes us a research one. Graduate students are doing that work for quite little pay, right? That makes us a research one. Graduate students are moving on and adding to our reputation. And graduate students are here much longer than undergrads. And so with that in mind, I would like to create what we've created in our one little room in an entire building where there's a place where they can come and co-work. There's a place where we can have events. There's a place where um, we have undergraduate cultural centers or the centers, whatever they're called now, I'm not sure. But we have them, but they're mostly for undergraduates. When I was a working mom in graduate school, although I was really happy that we had it, I didn't really want to go hang out with 20-year-olds, right? I wanted a place where maybe my daughter could draw in another room and where I could see her, but I could work on my stuff. And so that's really the vision and how we want to change how we focus on students, and that we see graduate students as a whole individual, as not just students, but as parents, as family members, as um, daughters and sons, taking care of elderly parents, all of those things, and that we want to support them holistically. And that's sort of the change that we're trying to be, that we want to see.
No, thank you. And I love that. I mean, I know Celeste and I have known each other for quite a while and we're doctoral students at the same time. And so I think we have had these conversations, right? And I think as an HSI, right, when we think about even just the designation alone, the Department of Education only looks at our undergraduate student population, right? And so that means we're completely not even regarding, at a federal level, our graduate students. However, I do think, again, one of the beauties of maybe the HSI designation being so free is that we as an institution, right, get to decide, all right, what is, and we do that collectively, right? You all have shown us by getting feedback from your students and then them telling you, we love this, we don't like this, and then you all made shifts and changes, right? So by collecting that feedback and really having this community-driven focus, we can really get to what are the needs of our graduate students, how can we best support them, knowing that they come from various identities, knowing that they come, again, like Celeste said, right? Maybe child caring responsibilities, elder caring responsibilities, working multiple jobs, trying to figure out, right, how to finance graduate school while also taking care of their mental health and all those other pieces that go into being students. So super, super grateful for you all and the work that you're doing. We are at time, so I want to be mindful. I do want to thank folks who were able to join us, but also the folks who will be viewing this at a later date. This will stay up, like I said, on our YouTube, so you will have the ability to come back at this in about a week or so. And so our next Centering Servingness Webinar Institute will be in April 16th at 1 p.m. Arizona time. We will be joined by Dr. Vignesh Subian, who's an associate professor for the College of Engineering, and his webinar will be linking student assets to student success, pathways to an engineering workforce for the Southwest. So again, thank you, Celeste and Nicole. Super grateful and excited to see where Grad CAFE goes next and how we can best support our graduate students. So thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful day.